I saw Lewis Hamilton give an interview recently about how when you're in pole position for so long, you end up chasing a mirage of yourself, or at least that's what he does in his own head. And it made me think about how these great performers, things that, whether they're actors, athletes, celebrities, or high performers, they all have one thing in common, and it's that decade of dedication. And it's a question I've been asking myself for a long time now. Am I willing to do this for a decade? Am I willing to put in the work without seeing any results and detach from the current moment and attach to the steps ahead of me? Because I understand that a long game is in play and eventually everything will arrive, but it's going to be nothing for a long time. How long can I endure that phase of nothingness? I also saw an interview of Will Smith, and there's something that he said in there talking about how there's a difference between being good and being great. If you're just good and you have talent and you just show up, then there's no way you're going to beat the people that are trying to be great, because the people who are trying to be great are putting in 70-hour weeks and all they think about is their craft. It's an obsession. All they're doing is work. Their work becomes their life and their life becomes their work. And that's not a bad thing, because ultimately their work is just an expression of themselves and their true authentic selves. I guess the takeaway was that it's simple, but it's not easy. The simple things to do in life, obviously, no alcohol, no drugs, no partying, no going out, saying no to distractions, in whatever form they may come in. Sometimes they come as opportunities, or they're masquerading as opportunities and they're really just a distraction. So if you train yourself to develop your eye and your inner eye to see what is actually pulling you away from your craft, then that's how you become great. So what I've really been focusing on now is trying to play it in decades. I'm trying to, like I said in the beginning, I'm not trying to focus on the next year or the next 2 years or next 3 years even. I'm thinking about 10 years from now. If I continue doing what I'm doing, obviously I'm going to micro adjust and course correct along the way and make iterations along the way. Will I be where I want to be? And I think the answer is yes. So not only am I publicly committing to playing in decades, but this is going to be a video I can watch back when I'm older to show myself that, yeah, look, I've dedicated a decade, at least a decade, to this craft. So if I had to break down how to play in decades, all it comes down to is become a master of showing up. Despite the circumstances, whether you're losing or whether you're winning, just show up. I think if you can master that skill and you can work even when you don't feel like it, or you can put out that writing piece or put out that post or that YouTube video, especially when you don't feel like it, then of course you're going to win. How can you lose on a long enough time scale if you continue to do that and you continue to show up regardless of how you feel? And I'm not saying how you feel should be disregarded, but a little bit maybe. But for the most part, emotions are fleeting. They're not there to stay. They're dependent on the circumstances and the things that are happening to you in that day, in that moment, for example. So I just put a note yesterday into my community talking about how you can't think yourself out of a rut. You have to move. You have to have action. You have to have intention, because as soon as you do that, something happens. There's a mysterious sequence of events fall into place when you do the mundane task of sitting down and doing the work, or you get up and work out. When you do these things, it's as if your watch synchronizes with God's and everything starts to fall into place, because what you're doing is you're creating momentum. What most people don't realize about momentum is that you can generate it at any moment. If you just decide to put your feelings aside and just do the work and just show up, you can create that momentum again, even if you're in the lowest point of your life right now, or if you're at the highest point of your life right now. Both are just as dangerous. Make sure you still continue to show up. Another thing Will Smith said in that interview that really struck me, and I think these things strike me to a core because I understand that I obviously want to be someone great, obviously want to provide as much value and impact as much people in the world as I can. So when you hear these types of messages from people who are in positions that you aspire to be in, then obviously it resonates differently. So the way I watch that interview may be different from the way you watch the interview or someone else watches that interview. But I'm assuming if you're watching this, then you're, of course, at least thinking about doing something with your life. One other thing he said in that interview was you can't mess up one night, because that ends up messing up 10. And I understand exactly what he means. So if you have, I don't drink, but for the people that do drink, if they go out and they get drunk and then they wake up late the next day and then they don't train that day and then they don't do any work that day, then that spirals and that goes on to the next day and the next day and the next day. So it's at that level when you're at the top, where you're trying to compete at the top, then you can't afford to mess up like that. And my thinking is, if he's thinking like that and he's at the top of his game, then who am I any different to think any differently? Why do I think that I deserve to mess up on some days and, intentionally waste some days away? I don't deserve that at all, especially because I'm not where I want to be at. Another thing I wrote about recently was a causal link. There's a causal link that is present that has orchestrated a sequence of events that have led you to exactly to where you are right now. And it's pretty much no one else's fault except yourself. The moment you accept responsibility for that, and of course, I'm not talking about anyone who's in dire circumstances, anyone who can't fend for themselves, or they don't, have the mental capacity or capability to do so, or they're in restricted locations. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about most people. But what I'm trying to say is we seem to think that there's no cost for the actions that we take. But on a long enough time scale, everything always universally, cosmically balances out. And I guarantee you now, if you trace back the steps that you've taken and you deconstruct the chain of events that have led you to where you are now, you'll come to understand there is no such thing as coincidence. You were the conductor. You were the one that was in control the whole time. In the moment, you may have minimized your actions, but in reality and in hindsight, it makes total sense why you are where you are. So my point is, be cautious of this causal link. You are the conductor, like I said. So every time you reach a crossroads to make a decision, think about what the future you would want for you now. And what I've just said there is really just about awareness. It's about raising your level of awareness. And you can do that by slowing down and becoming intentional about what your inputs are. It's hard to do that because our minds are going at 100% all the time and 100 miles per hour. But like a Formula One car has to slow down on the corner and then speed up, that's exactly what we have to do with our minds at times. A good friend of mine gave me a exercise to do, and I'm going to pass it on to you if you want to do it. It's an hourly audit. So every hour on the hour, set an alarm on your phone and then just audit the hour that has gone by. What exactly did you do in that hour? Because sometimes we can fool ourselves into thinking that we've had a productive day, but when you actually see it all there on paper, and you see how much time you picked up Instagram, how many times you picked up your phone, how many times you went on Snapchat, all of that, then you'll come to understand that, damn, all right, cool, maybe I'm not actually conscious most of the time. To break the grooves and patterns in your mind, unfortunately, you have to do it forcefully. But then when you do that, you create an unobstructed channel for the divine to come through. The chances are your mind is probably a chaotic dumping ground. There's millions and millions of thoughts scattered with no organization and no intention. But the more you slow down and the more you become aware of these thoughts and the more you detach from them and you don't actually categorize them as your own, then that will automatically help you clear the noise. So my point of this video, obviously, was if you want what no one else has, then you have to do what no one else will do. That's the simple truth of it all, and I couldn't break it down into simpler terms, to be honest. Some people observe other people's success and they view it as a quantum leap, as if they've, or they call them an industry plant or something because it looks like they've gone from something to nothing. But in reality, there's years and years of grit behind the performances they're putting in now, and that's the reason why they make it look so effortless. It paradoxically takes effort to make something look effortless. So there's only persistence. Are you playing in months or are you playing in decades? Rid yourself of short-sightedness, and the next thing you do, whether you're building a business, whether you're trying to become a YouTuber or a content creator or whatever it is that you're doing, ask yourself, are you building for the decade? Will it even be valuable a decade from now? I try not to post anything that I don't think I'll like in 10 years. And understand it's going to take time. Reality lags behind action for quite a while, maybe 6 months or so before you start seeing actual tangible results in whatever it is you're doing. But like I said in the beginning of this video, how long can you endure that phase of nothingness? Because if you can endure it for long enough, then you'll come to understand that everything will arrive all at once. I've seen it many times unfold in my business or in the content I'm posting. It took me 333 videos or 334 videos on TikTok and 36 videos on YouTube on my main channel to break even 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. And obviously now I've started the second channel, but I understand that it's a long game and it's going to start compounding now. There's just a period of delay, like I said, that if you embrace, it's kind of like placing an order for something online and it takes a while to get to you. If you buy from AliExpress, it's coming from China. Sometimes you even forget that you placed the order, but if you're continuing to kind of do the work in that time, then it's still going to arrive to you. So the good news is you can start doing the groundwork today. There's a parable of two bricklayers that I always talk about. One is asked, what are you doing? And the guy says, I'm just laying bricks. And the other one is asked and he says, I'm building the cathedral. So hopefully you understand that. And subscribe to my second channel. I'm going to be posting more regularly and frequently on here, and it's just going to be raw, talking to the camera, a free game like this. And if you're interested in diving deeper on these kind of topics and unlocking the keys to your mind, I've actually got new programs and new trainings and courses and stuff coming out actually inside of my school community. Join. It's not for everyone. I do kind of look through who applies first and see if it's the right fit for you. But if it is, then you can apply in the description below. And yeah, subscribe as well. Like I said, I'm going to try and post once or twice a week here. So yeah, appreciate you tuning in.